Uh, Hi Gagan, this is Akshat. Sorry, I joined in late, so I don't know whether you have already answered this question or not. Uh, what do you think should the total minimum corpus size that one should have before he gets into this angel investing mode, considering the entire portfolio?
So, yeah, if I have to think about doing it now, at least I will start with 1 crore of total kitty. And I will actually do 5 lakhs rupees of investment in 10 companies and keep another 50 lakhs for follow on investment in those 10. I can make maybe a portfolio of 12 or 13. So at least a crore, I think I will prefer to have if I'm starting. Obviously, this will happen in over a period of 3 years or
Okay.
maybe a little more. But yeah, that is what at least I will do. But it's quite subjective.
Fine. If I may ask another question, if you just invest like 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs into a company, how do you make sure that the founder is not going to dilute you to any kind of an extent later on? So do you get into those kinds of shareholder agreements initially, or people don't do that?
See, one thing, remember, you can go into a lot of nitty-gritty about managing and protecting your money, but that doesn't help much. So I will just invest and forget. Trust the founder. So go by these first two rules, right? Either market or a founder bet. So if it is a founder bet, anyway, you have taken a founder trust. If it is a market bet, but again, founders will make money. No investor will make money. Like when we are investing also, a lot of VCs take credit that I did that for company, I did that for company, but actually it's a founder who makes money for you. So you have to trust his judgment, and obviously, and maybe you will get cheated once or twice. We also get cheated, but I think so. Don't think about all those things. That is one as a fundamental premise I will suggest. With regard to this thing, generally, whenever the next round happens, you anyway get diluted.
Right.
Okay, so that dilution you can't stop, and rarely this happens in this typical startups where founder unnecessarily create extra shares and dilute you. So I think I don't see that happens typically in a type of companies where we invest as an angel.
Okay, got it. Thanks, man.
This is Ashutosh.
Hey, Gagan, this is Pranav again. One last question from my side. How do you sort of verify or vouch for the valuation that the founder is offering for a given company? Because ultimately your equity or share, whatever he's giving, is saying, he's saying 15 million, 30 million. How do you verify that? Do you have to do your own due diligence in understanding the market and his valuation is correct, or
there is no signs of valuation, frankly, Pranav, for first 2 to 3 rounds of the investment. So angel, seed, series A, there is no signs. In fact, to large extent, series B also there is no signs. It's all about what an investor want as a equity and what founder wants, how much founder wants to dilute. It's more of a function of equity, like one side wants to dilute and other side wants, and depending on that, each fund has its own appetite. So when you go for it, and same happens at angel round also, founder will come to you that I'm raising 1 crore and I want to dilute 10%, or I'm raising 50 lakhs and I want to dilute maybe again 10%. So you can't put any signs on it like, okay, it's your revenue is this much, the market valuation is 10x. The numbers which I gave you are the late stage numbers. Early stage, there are no numbers, signs around the valuation. So you can't do that. You have to, again, depending on, you can definitely, if founder comes to you first and suppose you are running a mandate, like you are a lead investor. Typically angel rounds in India happens on lower side at 5-7 crores to maybe 10-15 crore rupees of a valuation, and that like people end up raising from 50 lakhs to 2 crores. Obviously, there are deals where the valuations are in range of 20-30 crores or maybe more, which is like $3 to $4 million or $5 million. But that is rarely that happens. But if suppose someone is coming and saying, okay, I want to raise say $500,000 at a 5 million value, you can ask him, he will give his rationale, but you can't justify your logic to him based on market norms. It is just a demand and supply thing. So if he thinks that he can raise $500,000 at 10%, he will ask for, and if you think this opportunity is interesting enough, then you have to take a call.
Hi Gagan, this is Deepak. I had
Deepak, Ashutosh was asking a question before. Can we just take his question and then maybe we can come to you?
Yeah, thanks. So I wanted to ask, if you are investing through a syndicate or a group like AngelList, what is the criteria as per the regulatory norms in terms of the net worth of the person and the minimum investment over a period of time, or any other qualifications?
Say, forget the exact criteria, but what I know is that 25 lakhs rupees of investment you have to do in over a period of 3 to 5 years. That is the basic norm which Government of India have asked AngelList to, but I don't know how much seriously they track. They ask for declaration.
And I think there is a criteria of net worth of net tangible assets of at least 2 crores, something like that.
Yeah, but again, they take declaration for that. So frankly, you can bluff them. You can go there, say click, 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 and you can still invest 5 lakhs, and you may not have a proof and all. But yeah, they take a declaration from you.
So like AngelList, if I am registering, they will take a declaration.
Declaration, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And adding that, Ashutosh, it's a 2 crore except your primary residence. So primary residence should not be counted in that net worth.
Right. But if your primary residence is rented and you have a secondary residence, then
yeah.
You count. So yeah, I got it. So it's not very diligently tracked.
Gagan, hi, Ankit here. Just on that same question, suppose during the next round, second or third round, if we plan to exit, would somebody verify whether that declaration was correct or not?
See, again, I don't know. I think Varuchi can find out those and tell more. When we were investing, and like we never used the AngelList model that time. So I think if you go by AngelList, first of all, you have to follow those practices, because AngelList is a SEBI registered platform. But suppose like there is a startup which comes to you, and if you want to invest in them, I think, I don't know whether the regulatory hassle will come into the picture or not. So anyway, so I'm not the best guy to answer this technically.
Again, can I add on to this?
If I wanted to ask this question, then maybe we can come to you.
No, I wanted to add on to this, onto the investment. So AngelList is one like that. There are others like Let's Venture, which is there. So they do they invest via a fund, AIF fund. But there are other platforms also where people invest directly, then they go on the cap table. So there you don't need these criteria, like Lead Angels, Mumbai Angels, and all other angel groups. So you can directly invest there. So depending on where do you fit in, you can go. But yeah, I think if you don't qualify these norms, it will ultimately end up daunting you later. So I would say avoid tick marking, and then first qualify. If you're not qualifying, go to the angel groups. That is better.
Okay. I mean, I had some discussion with the Globester long time back. So that company is registered in US, and 1 million was the requirement to be that.
So Ankit, you are right. For Globester, it's a US based entity, and there the norms are quite tight. So you have to follow their guidelines, and as Vedam suggested, better you follow a guideline to be on safe side. Yeah. Whether you are going through a platform or an independent platform.
Yeah, US market is totally different. कि वहाँ पे तो एक Republic भी है, then that's a crowdfunding platform. The same norms are there, but these are hard to verify even in the Republic, which is a crowdfunding platform to raise the angel fund. They have raised for around 400 companies, very big platform, just like a Robinhood. It's coming up. So it's hard to verify. Nobody verifies those things, neither in the US, neither in India. Even the platform owner says that we don't verify behind it. So it's good to comply, because there's rules are made for certain things, but if you don't comply, it is not like they will come behind you with a pistol. So nobody does that, but it is just to safeguard ki people with the people are not blindly playing a punt on the startup, because this is a lot of frauds are also happening. People are punting and then vanishing away. So these are just a safeguarding mechanism for ourselves, but nobody is stopping you.
Yeah, Naveen, I agree with you.
Yeah, Gagan, one thing. So what I have heard is that typically the angel investors, and you can tell the some other numbers, but an IRR of 25 to 35% is good if you are a successful investor. And
Yeah.
so these platforms like Globevestor or Let's Venture or AngelList, they charge 5 to 10% upfront and 20% carry. So after all that, I will be left with 15 to 17% of return. And that's something what I get in Indian equity as well.
That will depend on, so suppose if your money is multiplying 10x, then if you pay 20% carry to the platform and then you pay this much upfront money, I think your return will not be kept. So if your point is that 25% to 30% is the average return, based on that, if you are paying 20% carry, then net IRR will come to 20 to 25.
Yeah, plus 10% upfront as well.
Yes, so if you go by average calculation, then definitely those are expensive platform. Actually, VC investing or angel investing, like theoretically meant, like the top tier funds, they make 5 to 7x. The 3 to 5x or 2 to 3x are made by the average fund, not average, in fact, the good fund, and the average fund actually go below than that. So the 25-30% IRR is for not top tier fund. So typically, if you are really a great fund, then you don't have to worry about it. So if you're going, like if your investment portfolio is great, then you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I agree. Like if you want to take this average calculation in mind, then this can be expensive. So if you ask me, somehow I don't like this idea of upfront fees of 5 to 10%. Generally, on AngelList, this fees is very low. I think this is less than 2% or 2%.
Yeah, but in Globevestor, yeah, it's 10% upfront.
See, and the reason is different. In Globevestor, it's a small fund, so they maybe for some reason they wanted to have a cost economics. They kept that, but I have no comment on that. But I'm sure you can find low fees platform, and I will encourage, if possible, if you find one which you have a comfort also, then go for that. But again, as I said, like suppose based on the calculation which you shared, if you end up still making 15 to 17%, still it's not that bad by paying carry and platform fee. What is more important is you get into this network, and once you do this, see, lifelong you will not use those platforms. Suppose if you like angel investing and you want to continue, then you can go. Once you get into it, then you can create your private network also.
Yeah, Gagan, that was my question. Do you have to go through a platform or can you do it direct?
See, you can do directly, but you need to have a network of deal flow. And if you don't,
that's what we are trying to do through these WhatsApp and Telegram groups.
Yeah, any other question?
Criteria will not apply.
Yes, I had a question.
Yeah, Deepak.
Yes, there are two questions actually. One is you touched on this a little bit, but you didn't go in details. Is the success, like you mentioned power law and probably investing more or sticking with the investment in the ones that are doing well. But how do you define that, like on paper, or success? Like you touched the point, but you didn't like properly. You spent time on it. Like how do you define the success? How do you follow the power law?
So, see, I think for me now, as a VC, it's a little easier because I get more access to information. So in my 8 portfolio companies where I'm invested right now, I have more visibility, and based on that visibility, I can, like, if the way we thought that company, what they planned as a business model or direction of like execution, and if they are going in the same path, or maybe if they are not going in the same path, but we still continue to get good comfort, I define that as a like criteria. But I know, like, for an angel investor it's difficult to find, but so what I know, like, one of my flagship investment is a company called Generico. It's a Bombay-based pharmacy chain. They sell generic drugs. It's a pharmacy shop, and they sell generic drugs. So I invested in that company when they came with the idea that they will make an app to connect pharmacy and pharma companies. And it was an IT Bombay team. I knew the founder because they helped me during my entrepreneur days. So when they came with this idea, and obviously that time, like, everything about connecting two different spectrum of a business chain, everyone thought that there's a value around it. I decided to invest on a broader level of market, but more of a team bet. I took that decision. After few months of multiple iteration, they came to me saying that they have realized that this idea of app is not so great because this market is small. Like, whatever they can do with information sharing, they may not be able to build a large business, but they realize that setting up a pharmacy shop is a good business because there's a lot of supply chain is broken in pharmacy business. And also they realize that there's a large margin in generic drugs, but no one is selling generic drugs because people go with what doctor is prescribing. And there is a large possibility, like in US and all, no one named the drug, right? People name the molecule. So frankly, I like their insight, but I was not sure. So I asked founder that if you want to do this model, then I can't give you more money, and you have to, if you want to execute this, you do it on your own. Like, borrow money from your parents or friends and do it on your own. Like, set up first 2 shops. If they work, then it's good. They went back and they actually did that. Like, they borrowed money from their friends and family, and they opened first shop. Within 2-3 months, it reached to 25 lakhs rupees of revenue, which is a very high revenue in a pharmacy chain. Like, typically a pharmacy shop has a 10 lakh rupees of a monthly revenue. They opened up a second shop, and that also went to around 18 lakhs rupees of revenue within 2 months. So basically that gave me a good comfort on the founder. And so basically, so those were the data points I picked up in that particular transaction. And then I doubled down on them. And that company, like, I doubled down in the third round also. And I feel that actually that company will make, if everything goes right, that will make a lot of return for me. So I'm saying, so same way, I will give you another example. There's a company called Find in my portfolio, which was sold to Reliance. Somehow I like the founder very much, and they are the great founders. Again, if they start something next in their life, I will again invest in them. I invested because, again, that founder worked with me. He did something for me during my entrepreneur days, and I was knowing him. And they made a great product, but somehow their business model was not strong. I never liked their business model. They kept on raising money. Like, in one point in time, they raised money from Google Ventures. A lot of people in my network said that it's a strong validation, but somehow I was not comfortable with the business model. And in my view, Google was a strategic investor. So I didn't invest in them in that round. And eventually that company got sold to Reliance. At least that company made good return for me. But from that Google round to the Reliance exit, the return was very delta. So I'm saying you have to, based on, like, over a period of time when you are investing, you'll build some hypothesis, and definitely you will go wrong also. But whatever hypothesis you decided to invest, like when you decided and when you invested, you have to look for another signal when this opportunity comes up. And obviously for that, you need to be in touch with the founder. And obviously you have to stay relevant in that space. But I will say, rather than external validation, look for the validation which you think is a validation. at least you will not regret either investing and not investing.
Okay, that makes sense. And then what kind, you mentioned that your returns were 2.7x invested capital, your personal returns. What are we looking at if you go pre-COVID? Like if before February, before the coronavirus valuation jump happened for all these technology companies, for a lot of technology companies, because suddenly the revenues went up and it makes sense on paper for certain companies, in actual worth for other companies. Were your returns much lower before that, or these have been consistent returns over time that you made?
Frankly, one thing which I do is like, I only, like at our fund also, we only mark up or mark down. In fact, we mark up only when there's a next round happens. We don't value, so I don't value my personal portfolio based on some momentum which happens in the company. But whenever there's a next round happens at a premium valuation, I mark up my valuation. And if my company is not doing in my personal assessment, then I mark down that company to 1x or 0 value. Whether the company is still holding at a certain value, but I mark down. So actually within the COVID period, at least none of, like very few companies, like at least in my personal angel portfolio, none of the companies raised money. In fact, some are like this Generico is doing quite well, but I have not marked up. Practically that company, the stock value has increased, but I have not marked up. So this 2.7x is based on whenever all this portfolio raised their last round.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then as far as the market goes, you said market bet or founder bet. Okay, those are all pretty good because either you understand the market or you know the founder. Let's say knowing the founder is obviously harder. Understanding the market, maybe one can do their own research and come up with a view. But again, it's my view versus somebody else's view, and like the founder obviously got into that business because he had a good view of the market, I'm guessing, and nobody else, assuming the founder has good credentials. So the founder has good credentials and he has gotten into market assuming he has good view of the market, and hence he is targeting that market. So I can have a negative view of the market as well at that point, but then that he has some numbers and he has a positive view. So if I trust the market in a certain way that it'll probably go in his direction, it's possible. How do we, like, beyond these two bets, if we just literally, as long as the credentials look okay on paper for founder, if we just keep throwing money at them on a regular basis, hard to get that kind of data. But if you do have that data, like monkey throwing darts and those founders, essentially, the founders who have good credentials, just on paper, what kind of return, have you ever looked at sort of data? Like what kind of return can you expect to generate or something like that?
Frankly, I don't know. I don't have that data, but what I've heard that AngelList also follow the same practice, that they look for great credentials in the founders and they look for large market, and that is what is their investment thesis. Like it's not AngelList, basically Y Combinator, and they have done quite decent. So I think. So you have to create this framework. Like, so maybe you don't know the founder, but you think that anyone coming from these colleges. So obviously there is a concept of founder market fit also, right? So sometimes you think that these credentials are relevant to this business or not. So sometimes you go a little deeper, not just that someone is coming from Stanford and starting and you just invest in them, but someone coming from Stanford and have a relevant experience, or maybe you think that his education is relevant to the idea. So you have to create this framework, and then you have to keep track of it. And as I said, like that's why I'm saying put a small check in multiple companies and you will test it out. At least in my limited learning, so like today at India Question, the investment which I've done, they are not any one of the founder I don't know. Most of the deal which we get are recommended by someone, but the guy is unknown to us. We talk to them 2-3 times, and in those 2-3 times we realize that whether this founder is good. So like we assess his hiring ability, we assessed his vision, we assessed his thought around the business model, and we try to assess that is this a good founder, whatever criteria which we think as a good founder, and then we invest. And obviously we course correct it. Like recently we had a learning about some of the factors which I used to think that they are not the good qualities of a founder. We realized that it's more of my behavioral style of thinking about a founder. Founder is a great founder, but as a behavioral aspect of a founder, if I don't like it, I'm saying that he's not a good founder. Is a wrong way to think about it. So So I think you will create your own framework and then you keep validating it over a period of time.
Okay, thank you. And then one last general question. It's you mentioned some revenue numbers of different markets like retail and other sectors, pharma sector. You have those numbers obviously because you're experienced in this field and you've been doing it for quite a certain time. How do we get those kind of numbers if we are looking at some company? And I know I can always do Google and have some sort of research, but is there some sort of somewhere we can go, easy access?
I don't think there is such place to go, but I will just suggest look for, at least from Indian context, anything which has a market of more than 10,000 crores or 20,000 crores. Take that as a norm, that the market has to be so large. So whatever model the company is saying as a revenue, that revenue into the total potential market, it has to be something in that range, tens of thousands of crore of revenue, potential revenue. Same for US is couple of $1 billion potential revenue if that company can capture all the customers.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Gagan. This is Mukesh.
Yeah, Mukesh.
Hi. Okay. So my question is basically, I mean, from an entrepreneur point of view, and also to understand the psyche of an investor. In fact, I mean, we are realizing that most of the investors are asking for proof of concept or some existing traction, right? But say, unlike the edutech or agri-tech startups where they create or show some apps, or can show traction in terms of customer base or subscriber base, or number of orders received, etc. I mean, the sector that we are in, it's kind of tough to show proof of concept, because the sector that we are in needs early stage capital at the concept stage to create the very proof of concept that they're asking for. So what my question is that, do you think angel investors or VCs, they sometimes take a chance with concept stage startups where with the money they can create a proof of concept and show it later on?
Yeah, good point. So VCs does invest at concept stage. So a lot of institutional investor, it's just that each VC fund or a particular partner at a fund has his own view on a particular spaces. Like maybe I have a strong view on say a social media or a content space that this will work, or maybe have a view on a ad tech space. So maybe someone else at another fund will have a view on a particular space. So if people come with idea in those spaces, they take a idea stage bet. So that is possible, fairly possible.
Okay, so it depends on their liking of the sector or their understanding of the sector, you mean?
Yeah. Thanks. So now, I mean, we have extended the session by a long time. So there can be two more questions. Gagan is also tired. So two questions from someone who has not asked any question yet.
I think Mitul wanted to ask some question earlier. I think he has left.
Okay, anyone else?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Nami.
Okay, Gagan, in your discussion, you talked to hundreds of founders. So my question is related to founders. After Chai Pe Charcha founder, you will select some of the founders to your next level of discussion, and then you will. This is this natural selection. So two questions: how do you see from your thoughts keep founders' past failures? How much do you take that into consideration, and how much founders background search you emphasize on? So just a few thoughts on these two questions.
So we always look for founders. We go for founders reference check. That is a must. Okay, at our fund, this is a policy. So we will try to reach out to his previous boss, or we will reach out to his previous investor if he's an entrepreneur before or someone. So we do that. Obviously, if they are college graduate, then we don't do any reference check so much. But yeah, we prefer to do a reference check, and idea is to, if there is a, rather than a red flag, is like basically to get some feedback and like the way we do for typical employees onboarding. So we do reference check. If you, and your first part of the question, that whether
Yeah.
a failure in a startup before does value to the consideration or not.
Yeah.
I think for us, it doesn't matter. If you really ask me, I think if he has a prior failure, in fact, maybe I am biased, I take it as a positive case only, because it's my feeling that failure early in your career will help you stay more grounded, and you'll be more practical. There are a lot of advantages of failure. So I personally respect failure more, but it doesn't mean that any failed entrepreneur will be always be a great entrepreneur. So you can't make it as a de facto, but at least I take it as a positive case. And obviously, if it's a successful entrepreneur, then it's anyway is a positive.
I had one question. Can I ask?
Yes, sir.
Saurabh. This is the last question.
Yeah, sorry. So just coming back to this question of looking at the market size, right? So, and let me just come back to the investment that you made in, let's say, Generico. Now, I understand, let's say, the pharma market in the country is around $13-14 billion, right? And a typical pharmacy would have 10 to 20% of that as their revenues, because that's the margin that they would have. And then they have costs and all of those associated with that. Now, if I look at that, so 15 and 20% of that, so the market size is $3 billion. And then, so should we like do that? Let's say if we are looking at, let's say, the pharmacy chain, should we kind of cut it down? Then what is the online pharmacy chain? Remove that. Or, and then what is, let's say, the Bombay market size, because you are going into physical stores? Do we do that? Or, and let's say a parallel example of EdTech, you have education, which is several $1 billion, but then you look at IIT as a segment or CAT as a segment, or so do we do that for market segmentation when we're looking at 10,000 crores, or it's just a broader kind of a view?
So good question. You have to look at segment. Okay, you definitely have to look at segment. But first, obviously, you will look at that on a broader level. Is the market large enough or not? Like for when this company went into pharma space, like why we invested in the app space business, like we didn't do so much of deep calculation, but we were aware that pharma is $25 billion market, which will go to $50 billion by 2025. So we were comfortable taking a bet on that company. So I didn't go into deep segmentation that this is their exact idea and this idea will translate to this much market when I first time invested, right? So, but on a broader level, I went into that in pharma, which is a $25 billion going to $50 billion market. There is in a supply chain, there is 10-20% to 30-35% margin in the whole supply chain. So it's an interesting market for sure. And these guys are thinking something around that. So I did a broader thought when I invested in them. When they went for pharmacy business, obviously, when I took a call, what we thought that this the pharma chain has 20% margin, but the generic drugs has 80% margin, and that was actually the major reason for us to take a bet that the ethical drugs, which is the branded drugs, will move to a generic drugs in 8 to 10 years horizon, or maybe it can take more and then we can go wrong also. But that was our assumption, that the world will move towards this and then the margin will increase. And in our thought that if the world will move towards that, if this company bring their private label brands, then definitely the margin can expand. So we did sub-segment calculation when I was investing second time in that company. But again, just to answer question, sort of like, so as an angel investor, I have a limited understanding also, right? So I will do limited analysis about this segmentation. But if you can do a segmentation analysis, it's good to do. So I will encourage you to do that. But whatever limited you do, and if you get some early feeling that it is giving you a decent enough construct, because a lot of time the market also expands, or sometimes the founder pivoted to a neighboring segment which is a bigger market, right? Like in this case, this
Right.
guy is from this to other segment, right? Which was not the idea earlier. And that is what, like, if you take the Uber case, everyone thought that the taxi cab market is this much, but they never thought that if people will start using Uber for their daily commute, they will stop using their personal cars or carpooling. So no one thought about that, right? So that's why, like, predicting market is difficult, and there is a lot of debate around it. But yeah, as an approach, you can try going to broader market and then maybe a segmented market, and take some take a call around that.
Got it. That's very, very helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I think
Thanks everyone. Yeah.
for hosting this. I was slightly reluctant in committing you for today's time, but I actually loved talking to all of you, and I think it was a good exercise done by Varuchi, which made me also reflect some of my learning. Thank you, everyone, and wish you all the best. And I think, as I said, just a closing note is that plan some money and divide that wealth into multiple portfolios and just go on. I think angel investing has given me a different value in my life. Obviously, my career also drifted from being an entrepreneur to investment, so it helped me multi ways. I think so. If you have some allocation possible, and you can start any point in time, you don't have to do it today. So don't worry about it. Like, so if you don't think you have enough allocation available, do it after 5 years from now. Okay, so all the best.
Thanks a lot, Gagan. It was really, really very helpful to, I think, to all of us. At least to me, it is very helpful here.
Right.
Okay, thanks everyone. I will end
Thank
the call.
you.